He smiled when he said it. That was what stopped me cold. The smile. As if wiping out 3 years of my work was nothing more than a clever joke between colleagues. It was supposed to be my day. I'd been up since 5 a.m., rehearsed the final pitch twice, and walked into Brighton Logistics, a mid-sized shipping software company based in Denver, feeling like today was the payoff. For 18 months, I'd built the entire routing platform from scratch, streamlining operations, slashing delays, and tripling customer retention. I wasn't just the systems lead. I was the architect of their future. Or so I thought. The conference room was buzzing when I walked in, screens, glowing execs, murmuring, coffee steaming. I was 42, the oldest woman in the room, but for once, I felt like the future, not the past. Then Jackson Cole walked in. Founder, CEO, the kind of guy who still used words like synergy and believed Patagonia vests made him relatable. He lifted a champagne glass. Thanks for coming, everyone. Before we dive into numbers and announcement. Then he turned to me. Emily, after 3 outstanding years, we're letting you go. The smile didn't move, but the air left the room. I froze. My hands went numb against the oak conference table. Incredible effort, he said, as if I'd just wrapped up a successful bake sale. Maybe now you'll get some rest. Laughter. Light awkward. Like the others weren't sure if it was a prank. 50 people in the room and not one met my eyes. 3 years. Birthdays missed. Weekends vanished. Code written at 2 a.m. And I was a punchline. Then I saw the stack of papers near his elbow. Project Nova. IP transfer agreement. Bold font. No signature. My name missing from the final line. That's when the numbness broke. Something colder replaced it. The HR office felt like a tomb. The manager, a woman named Beth, slid a white envelope toward me like it was a parking ticket. 3-month severance, she said. Voice neutral. You'll need to return your laptop keycard and any company property by 5 p.m. We can schedule an exit interview. I wouldn't, I said. My voice came out scratchy, but solid. 3 months. That was the going rate for nearly 2 years of blood, sweat, and code. The door opened again. Jackson. Of course. He sauntered in like he was checking on a friend post-brunch. Jacket slung over one shoulder. That same damn smile. No hard feelings, right? It's not personal, just business. He even patted the back of my chair. Not personal. My chest flared. My entire professional identity. Dismissed in 2 minutes, and he was already planning drinks for Friday. Sure, I said, voice tight. I wouldn't let him see me break. That's the spirit, he said, then left. I stared down at the severance envelope. My name was on every line of Nova's documentation, every development log, every update. But without my signature on the IP transfer, it was still mine. And he had no idea. Every movement felt heavier, like gravity had doubled in that HR office. I turned to leave, head pounding. Then I heard it. Jackson's voice dropped low behind me. She'll be fine, he murmured. Not meant for me, but loud enough to land. She won't make a fuss. She needs her reputation more than we need her. I froze mid-step. So that was how he saw me, predictable, tame. A woman too polished to fight back. My heels clicked against the tile as I forced myself forward, keeping my head high, even as my vision blurred at the edges. But then something stopped me. Behind him on the desk, a clutter of folders, a sleek leather planner opened wide. My pulse stuttered. Strategic planning. Investor pitch. Friday, 10:00 a.m., 5 days from now. A multi-million-dollar meeting built entirely around the system I designed. My code. My framework. The sting of betrayal twisted into something colder. Sharper. A single white-hot thought ignited. They think I'm done. They have no idea. By the time I hit I-25, rain streaked across the windshield like silver veins. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I thought I'd cried everything out in that office. But another wave surged, hot, bitter, unrelenting. 3 years of sacrifice. 18 months of brutal hours. And it ended with a champagne toast and a smug smile. My phone buzzed. The screen lit up Harper, my closest friend and Brighton's lead legal counsel. I answered, barely holding it together. Please tell me this is about margaritas. Her voice was low. Emily? You need to know. Jackson's presenting your platform to the investors. They're finalizing the deal. $410 million? I went silent. Then? That's not possible. They can't. They can't, she said firmly. Not legally. But he's betting you won't fight. He thinks you care more about your name than your rights. Jackson's words echoed like a drumbeat in my ears. She won't make a fuss. I ended the call. My chest ached rage where sadness had been. By the time I got home, it was pouring. I didn't bother changing. I dumped my laptop and papers onto the kitchen table. Contracts, emails, build logs, versions. My hands shook as I flipped through page after page, desperate for something to make this stop. And then I found it. Clause 9B. Buried in boilerplate legalese, but lit up like a lifeline. If the intellectual property transfer is incomplete at termination, all rights revert to the original creator. I read it again. And again. The IP transfer Jackson bragged about, he never got my signature, which meant the system, the whole damn platform, was still mine. Relief flooded my chest. Then rage overtook it. I opened my laptop. Buried in my inbox was a flagged email from Jackson. Confidential, sent to a board member accidentally CC'd to me weeks ago. Once this closes, I'm looking at a $2 million personal bonus, drinks on me, $2 million for him, severance crumbs for me. The betrayal that had hollowed me out all day solidified into something stronger. Unbreakable. They thought I'd slink away quietly. They were wrong. The next morning, I walked back into Brighton's headquarters like it was any other Thursday. Security didn't blink. My badge still worked. Each step across the marble floor echoed like a countdown. No one stopped me, because no one saw me as a threat. I passed Jackson's glass-walled office. He was mid-call gesturing like he was already ringing the NASDAQ bell. I kept walking toward the server room. I still had access. I'd built the permission system myself. I didn't touch anything. Not yet. I just copied what was mine, every line of code, every encrypted module, proof, leverage. And then I walked back out slow and steady. Because what comes next, that wouldn't be noise. It would be precision. And Jackson Cole was about to learn what happens when you bet on silence and forget who taught the system how to speak. If you're inspired by stories of courage and comeback, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next chapter of this journey is just around the corner and you won't want to miss what happens next. Every beep at the security gate sounded like a countdown. My badge still worked, somehow. Each scan whispered the same message. You're only here to clean up your own funeral. I kept my head high as I walked across the open floor of Brighton Logistics. Conversations dipped. Eyes darted, then crept back. The fallen soldier on her final lap. My desk looked exactly as I'd left it. Like the humiliation from yesterday hadn't soaked into the wood. I set my bag down, powered on my machine, and started the mechanical process of transferring files, project logs, notes, everything they'd need. If this was my swan song, I'd perform it gracefully. That illusion lasted 14 minutes. Jackson appeared in my doorway. Smooth as ever, with a smile that dripped manipulation. Emily, he said, syrupy and performative. Quick sec in the conference room. The team wants a photo. He didn't wait for my reply. He never did. The conference room was packed, and at the center stood Sienna Brighton's new rising star. Mid-30s blazer, the color of ambition lipstick, as bold as her LinkedIn endorsements. She turned to me with a practiced, apologetic smile. That made it worse. Jackson clapped once. Perfect. Both of you right under the company logo. He already had his phone out. We'll post this on LinkedIn. Show what teamwork looks like. His tone was dressed in praise, but the words reeked of performance. My stomach twisted. Teamwork, I was being staged like a prop in my own erasure. Still, I moved where he pointed. Because if I resisted, I'd give him exactly what he wanted, an image of a bitter, difficult woman. Closer, he said, arranging us like furniture. Sienna stepped beside me, perfumed and poised. I smiled through gritted teeth. The camera clicked. Once, twice. Jackson grinned like a proud parent unveiling his next protégés. And then I saw it. Behind him on the sleek conference table lay a stack of binders. I recognized them instantly. The originals. My project documentation. The top sheet was visible. The system's name in bold. My pulse surged. Jackson's signature scrawled across the bottom line, and next to it, a blank space. No signature, no transfer, no surrender. The photographer chirped one more. Jackson adjusted his cufflinks, oblivious. But the fire behind my polite smile had returned burning hotter than ever. They wanted a photo of cooperation. What they got was a woman holding her rage like a blade. The drive home was silent. No music, no calls, just the hiss of tires over wet asphalt and the deliberate rhythm of my breathing. Anger had burned itself out hours ago. What remained was quieter, sharper. When I got home, I didn't turn on the lights. I dropped my keys, kicked off my heels, and walked straight to the kitchen. The granite countertop became my war table. From my bag, I pulled out every scrap of documentation, NDAs, email printouts, version logs. I spread them across the counter like blueprints of a fallen kingdom. In the center, one clause stared up at me like a spotlight, Clause 9b. If intellectual property transfer is incomplete at termination, full rights revert to the original creator. I traced it with my fingertip. Power hidden in legal text. Jackson had the board, the investors, the optics. But I had this. I opened my laptop. The glow from the screen split the kitchen in two. My credentials, personal, not corporate, still worked. I logged into the private repository I'd built before Brighton even knew what Nova was. There it was. Every module, every encrypted segment, every piece of code that made the system valuable, untouched, untouchable, still mine. Jackson thought he had secured his future, but without me, he was about to discover what it feels like when the system stops running, not because it failed, but because the woman who built it finally said no more, legally mine. I scrolled through the core files slowly, almost reverently. Every line of code, every secure module, still intact, still under my personal credentials. Jackson Cole could strut around in designer suits pitching investors on a dream, but without these files, he had nothing but buzzwords and a borrowed smile. Then, I opened the email Harper had forwarded me the night before. Subject investor pitch. Final deck. My breath caught. I clicked. The slide deck loaded, and my pulse kicked hard. Brighton Logistics. Exclusive proprietary tech platform. The title slide practically screamed. The next few followed in lockstep: scalability, optimization, market disruption. But what stopped me cold wasn't what was in the deck. It was what wasn't. My name, my work, my fingerprints, 3 years of late nights, missed holidays. Building that platform line by line, erased like a typo. Then came the appendix. Technology developed in-house by Brighton executive leadership. I let out a short, breathless laugh. The audacity was surgical. I leaned back in my kitchen chair. The refrigerator hummed. The house was silent, and I felt steady. Not angry, not hurt, just clear. I closed the pitch deck, opened a blank document. Jackson wanted a future without me. Fine, I'd give him one. Just not the one he imagined. When I finally spoke aloud, it startled me. My voice was calm, sharp. Game on. By day 3 of handover, the office felt like theater. I knew my lines. I played my role perfectly. The good sport, the team player, the one who didn't let personal feelings get in the way of progress. I smiled just enough, spoke just enough, never broke character. Emily Sienna asked from my doorway, her pen poised like a sword she hadn't learned how to use. Could you walk me through the Shaw Logistics account again? I gestured to the chair across from mine. Of course. Polite, even, Professional. I mapped out client expectations, delivery metrics, integration traps. She scribbled notes like gospel. For a second, I almost pitied her. Almost. She wasn't the villain, just the pawn Jackson had crowned queen for the LinkedIn post. By 11 a.m., I'd answered 4 more quick questions, smiled through 2 awkward coffee handoffs, and sat through a meeting where I was referred to as our outgoing lead. Like I'd died, and this was my eulogy. Each time I nodded, smiled, offered perfect responses. But inside, I was laying tripwires. Jackson breezed past my desk around noon. The cloud of overpriced cologne hit first. "Emily?" he drawled, pausing just long enough to draw attention. "Don't forget to update your resume. You never know, someone out there might still appreciate your reliability." 2 desks over, someone laughed. Quick. Nervous. My jaw tightened so hard it made my teeth ache. But I smiled anyway. "Thanks for the tip," I said lightly. My fingers curled around my pen, pressing so hard the metal bit into my skin. He smirked and strolled away, like the crown was already on his head. But I knew something he didn't. Every step he took now was 1 step closer to a fall, because behind my soft voice and patient smile, the strike was already in motion. Jackson was satisfied with his performance. The moment the office buzz settled back into place, I moved, slowly, casually. I slid open the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was a small black case, dusty, forgotten. A relic from when I was trusted to hold keys no one else had access to. Inside it, a discreet security badge, no bigger than a USB stick, the kind you don't get anymore, not unless the company trusts you with the system's spine. It settled into my palm like it remembered me. I slipped it into my blazer pocket, as naturally as adjusting my phone. No one noticed. Why would they? To them, I was harmless, predictable, already written out of the story. By the time Sienna popped in again to ask about backup protocols, I was all smiles, patient, helpful, the perfect image of grace in defeat. But in my pocket, that badge pulsed against my skin like a second heartbeat. Not a relic. A reminder. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. By Thursday afternoon, Jackson was glowing, practically levitating from his own ego. I watched from my desk as he floated through the open floor like a politician on election day, grinning, back, patting, hand, shaking. "Big day tomorrow," he announced loudly, making sure everyone heard. "Investor signing. A milestone for Brighton Logistics." Applause followed, hollow and overeager. He soaked it up like sunlight. As he passed my desk, he gave me that too smooth grin, the one meant to humble and humiliate. "Wish us luck, Emily?" he asked, voice dripping with irony. "Maybe we'll toast to you in spirit." I smiled back. Cool, polite, unreadable. "Good luck, Jackson." Inside, my thoughts were steel. Let him enjoy the parade. Let him wear his crown for now. Because by this time, tomorrow, that crown would feel a lot more like a noose. I left the building at 5 sharp. No goodbyes, no extra files. Just my laptop bag and a silence so deep it felt like strategy. By the time I pulled into my driveway, dusk had settled over Denver like a soft shroud. The house was still, empty. Perfect. I dropped my bag on the kitchen island, the same battlefield where this began. But tonight, there was no scrambling, no panic, just precision. The laptop screen lit the room. It reflected off the surface of my water glass like a scalpel. I opened a blank document. Let my fingers hover for just a moment. Then I began to type with the steadiness of someone who knew exactly what power looked like. "Dear Jackson, please accept this message as formal notice that I will not be providing further cooperation regarding the transition or use of the Nova platform or any of its derivatives. As of my termination date, and per Clause 9B of my employment agreement, all intellectual property rights remain exclusively with me as the original creator. Any attempt to utilize, present, distribute, or commercialize this technology without my written consent constitutes a breach of federal intellectual property law and will be pursued to the fullest extent, including injunctive relief and damages." I strongly recommend canceling tomorrow's investor signing. Failure to do so could expose Brighton Logistics to substantial legal and reputational risk. Emily Carter. I read it over twice. Every line sharpened like a blade. No anger, no threats. Just facts, leverage, law, power. I hovered over the send button for one breath, then clicked. 11:42 p.m. The message disappeared into the ether, and the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was absolute control. Jackson had spent months building a future with my foundation, and now, with one document, I'd pulled the floor out from under it. Tomorrow, they'd walk into that room expecting a deal. But what they'd get was the fallout. And then came the final cut delivered with the same composed cruelty Jackson Cole had always wielded like charm. For transparency, I've CC'd Brighton's full board and legal counsel. I read the message twice before hitting send. No rage, no dramatic punctuation, just clean, cold precision. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. 11:42 p.m. The progress bar slid across the screen, and with it, something inside me shifted, like a lock had clicked open. Jackson wanted headlines tomorrow. He'd get them, just not the version he rehearsed. The storm hit before sunrise. My phone lit up on the nightstand. First HR, then Jackson, then legal. Each call rolled in before the previous one had even finished. A relentless cascade of panic buzzing through the wood. By the fourth round, I flipped the phone face down and let it blink like a distress beacon I didn't plan to answer. Instead, I padded barefoot into the kitchen, brewed a pot of coffee, and let the aroma rise into the still air like victory. The sky outside was soft, gray, quiet post-storm calm, the kind that only comes after something breaks. I poured my cup slowly. For the first time in 3 days, there was no rush, no fear, just time and clarity. 30 minutes later, the news broke. The anchor's voice cut through the quiet hum of the TV. Breaking this morning, Brighton Logistics' $410 million investor deal has been delayed indefinitely due to a pending legal dispute over proprietary technology ownership. The graphic on-screen said it all: historic signing on hold amid IP battle. I took a slow sip. The coffee was bitter. It tasted perfect. Jackson must have been unraveling by now. My phone buzzed again. Voicemail. I pressed play. His voice was tight-stripped of its usual bravado. Emily, we need to talk. Whatever this is, we can fix it. Call me. I didn't. A second voicemail followed this one from HR. Emily, the board is requesting clarification on your email. Please respond at your earliest convenience. I opened my inbox instead. 57 unread messages. Subject lines screamed in all caps, urgent, call now, don't ignore. And then, one that made me pause. It wasn't panicked. It was calm, deliberate. From Evelyn Grant, the board's most senior director. Emily, if you're open to a conversation, we'd like to discuss possible collaboration moving forward. Discretion assured. I stared at it for a moment. The same empire that cheered my exit. Now knocking on my door. I didn't reply. Not yet. I topped off my coffee and turned up the volume on the news. The stock ticker was a bloodbath. Brighton Logistics, 13.7%. They were sliding. And me? I had never felt steadier. The phone rang again at 9:12 a.m. I let it buzz twice before answering. Jackson's voice was stripped bare. No polish, no swagger. Just raw panic breathing through the line. We can fix this. Whatever you want, name it. I let the silence stretch, sipping my coffee, letting him sweat. Money equity, he continued, voice cracking. You've earned it. We'll take care of you. Just pull the plug on the legal complaint. Don't ruin this deal. I smiled faintly. Don't ruin this deal. As if I were the problem. As if he hadn't built his empire on theft and arrogance. It's not about money, Jackson, I said, my voice calm as glass. I don't work with people who erase me and call it leadership. He paused, then tried again. Sign the transfer. Let's make this official. We're too far in. I almost laughed. Too far in. He was knee-deep in quicksand, and I was holding the rope, still pretending the ground wasn't shifting beneath him. "Jackson," I said softly, like you would to a child who still thinks monsters aren't real. "Did you even read my letter?" A pause, then cautious confidence. "Yes. Of course. No." I cut in. My voice dropped to steel. "Because if you had, you wouldn't be asking me to sign anything." He faltered. "What? What are you talking about?" I turned to my laptop. The confirmation email was still open. Clean, stark, irrefutable. "I filed for full patent protection yesterday," I said calmly. "Under my name." Silence on his end, but not just silence impact. That's not possible," he stammered. "You can't, I did," I said, slicing through his disbelief. "Federal confirmation came through at 7:41 this morning. The Nova platform belongs to me now, legally, irrevocably." I let it land, then delivered the final strike. "So the only question left, Jackson, is how much are you willing to pay just to keep the word Nova in your investor deck?" He inhaled sharply, like the first time he'd been punched, and realized it hurt. Jackson Cole, King of Brighton. Logistics had no words. "Jackson," I said quietly, letting each syllable drip like ice. "I told you I wasn't for sale. But your pride, that's expensive." I ended the call before he could recover. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was power. Mine. Reclaimed. Absolute. By lunchtime, the news was everywhere. Breaking: Jackson Cole resigns as CEO amid legal battle. 400 meters investor deal collapses. The headline ran like a scar across every financial feed. Brighton stock plummeted 15% in a single day. The empire he built on borrowed ideas was cracking, loudly, publicly. I stood at my kitchen counter as my phone buzzed nonstop. Dozens of calls, dozens of messages. I didn't answer any of them, not even the board. They didn't need to call again, because by then, another call had already come, the one that mattered. "Emily, we're thrilled to welcome you to Horizon Tech as our new Chief Innovation Officer," said the crisp voice on the other end. "We believe in rewarding visionaries, and we're offering equity, not crumbs." I started the following Monday. The building shimmered like possibility. Floor-to-ceiling windows spilled sunlight onto a space built for creation, not politics. And waiting at the end of the hall, my office. Nameplate polished: Emily Carter, Chief Innovation Officer. I unpacked just one box that first morning. Inside were 2 framed documents encased in sleek black glass. My termination letter, and the email that changed everything. I hung them side by side behind my desk. Not as scars, but as symbols. Proof that endings aren't always failures. Sometimes they're blueprints. When I finished, I walked to the window. Denver stretched below me, humming with movement, light, possibility. And for the first time in months, I felt something unshakable. Freedom. Not the kind handed to you with a severance check, but the kind you carve out with your own hands, one calculated strike at a time. My laptop chimed behind me. A new message from Jackson Cole's subject. Why I opened it slowly, savoring the symmetry. 2 words stared back at me. I didn't hesitate. I typed with certainty. Each keystroke a quiet victory. "Jackson, thank you. If it weren't for that smile, I'd never have become who I am today." Send. I closed the laptop. In the glass reflection, I saw a woman forged in fire, no longer the casualty, but the architect, the doubters, the betrayals, the long, sleepless nights. They weren't chains anymore. They were fuel. Behind me, the 2 letters caught the sunlight like trophies. And I smiled. Not for revenge, but for the rebirth. And for the first time since this all began, I whispered to the quiet room, smiling a smile that was mine alone. I won. The deepest victories often rise from the harshest betrayals. Emily's story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming your worth, refusing to be erased, and proving that dignity isn't negotiable. When life slams a door shut with arrogance and injustice, you don't plead to get back in. You build a better door, stronger, yours, if you've ever been overlooked, undervalued, or made to feel small. Let this be your reminder. Your value isn't defined by their recognition, it's defined by your resilience, your strategy, your refusal to break. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in Emily's shoes? Walk away quietly or fight for what's rightfully yours? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If this story gave you even a flicker of strength or hope, hit that like button. It tells us these stories matter. If you've ever felt invisible or undervalued at work, you're not alone. I've been there facing the cold dismissal after years of giving my all, but what I want you to know is this: your worth isn't defined by how others treat you. It's built in your resilience, your courage to stand up when the world tries to write you off. I'd love to hear from you. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you quietly walk away or fight to reclaim what's rightfully yours? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories, your advice, your support mean the world, not just to me, but to everyone watching who needs that spark of strength. Remember, life will sometimes close doors with arrogance and injustice. Don't waste time begging to get back in. Build your own door stronger, better, and fully yours. Hold your head high, trust your value, and never let anyone erase your dignity. If this story moved you, please hit like, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more real stories about fighting back, standing tall, and winning on your own terms. Together, we rise.